Y'all, this past weekend was probably the coolest weekend I have had since I have been here. Oh my gosh. It was a field trip with my biological diversity class, and it is the coolest field trip I've ever been on by far. We started by taking a quick little bus over to Punta Arenas.
Woo, what's up?
From there we jumped on a ferry, but like, I say the word ferry and you're like, oh, like a cute little dinger that like goes across the ocean. Yeah, no. This is like a massive ferry that like cars can drive on, go to the other side of the bay, and then be like let off. There's like the mainland of Costa Rica, and then there's kind of like a peninsula that hangs off of it. So this ferry goes from the mainland to the peninsula so that you don't have to go all the way around, if that makes sense. It was just like a short hour 15-minute ferry ride because it moves pretty slow, but it was really cool. We got to see some wildlife and we were all just like hanging out. There was some music going on.
Oh, it's a video.
Literally, as soon as we get off, our professor walks us like on this trail, like right through the woods, and we walked up and the table was already set for us to eat lunch. So we all sat down and they brought us all out like our plates of casado. The main dish was freshly caught mahi-mahi.
Okay, got it. I bet that's looks super cool.
Oh my gosh, I am not a fish person. Like, I do not like fish, but obviously being in Costa Rica, I've tried to extend my horizons and try fish, especially when we're like right by the beach where they catch the fish and it's super, super fresh. This is probably my favorite fish that I've ever had. It was so good, just grilled perfectly, put a little lemon on there and just divine. This little restaurant was actually part of a sustainable fishing co-op. The whole point of the co-op is that these fishermen are smart fishing throughout the water to make sure that it's sustainable. It's basically all these fishermen working together to make sure that it's the best for everyone. But they mostly, I think, catch a lot of fresh mahi-mahi. And so they actually have set up this brand new processing building that we got to take a little tour of.
Wow. I do.
Before, they were actually shipping the fish back to that mainland I was talking about earlier to be processed, and then it had to come back to the peninsula and then be sold like around the coast. It kind of cuts off that extra time, but also this is all super organic, super fresh. Like, it's like a rule that all fish has to be covered in like a plastic container to be sold. They've actually resorted to using a type of plastic that actually biodegrades in a lot less time, so it's actually way better for the environment. We also got to meet Luis for the first time. He's a really good friend of our professors. And his dad is the one who actually founded Curu, which is the nature reserve that I'm going to talk about later. He is like a rock star of conservation and just like an environmentalist. He does so much work within the community and working with this fishery. It was kind of his idea to set up this whole co-op, and he's the one that kind of runs it and is trying to get it to move forward. He has so many projects throughout the community that he's working on. They actually took us to the local high school that he has some projects going on there right now. There was an abandoned irrigation agriculture system there, and so he's worked with some USAC students to kind of get that back up and running so that they could grow food for the school. because the school system here in Costa Rica feeds all the kids no matter what, which is really, really cool. They don't have to pay for it at all. They were kind of begifted some mahogany trees. He's now going to use that wood to create a bunch of tables and benches and stuff for the school too. He is awesome about figuring out ways to use any kind of waste for the better. It's so cool. So then next we finally headed over to Curu. This place is amazing. It's again based on sustainability and protecting the environment, protecting these areas so that the wildlife can grow and flourish, and they use old tires to create like artificial coral reefs kind of structures, because that's kind of where young fish go to grow up. So they're very, very important for the ecosystem. We all piled onto a boat, took a lap around La Isla Tortuga, which was really beautiful. I don't have a lot of footage because I didn't want to take my phone out on the boat, but there was like massive rock structures on the sides of this island because of the way the platonic plates have like moved and they've pushed the rock up. But it was like really kind of soft rock, so the sea had eroded some like different cave like arches in it, which was so cool to see. It was like straight rock, but there were some cool cactuses growing in it and stuff, so I really enjoyed looking at that. We saw some dolphins while we were riding around, which was so cool. Some of them were jumping really high, and then we finally got to go snorkeling.
So we're out here and we're snorkeling, and it's so much fun. There's so many fish. Shout out to Courtney for letting me use her camera so that I could get some footage out here.
This is so fucking dope.
It's so cool. It's so cool. Oh my gosh, I've never been snorkeling before. All right, we're going back in. Taking a lot of seawater. If you ever get the chance to snorkel in Costa Rica, do it!
We swam around for a while, and then we took the boat to this little private beach area where they gave us some fresh pineapple and watermelon. We saw some army ants doing their thing, which was so scary. I do not like ants, and there were so many of them crawling everywhere, and they just invade entire areas of land, and just like all the animals start like coming out because like they just creepy crawling. I don't like it. The Spanish word for ants is bichos. I think that's appropriate. And once the sun had finally set and it got dark, we took the boat back out and went snorkeling again, except this time it was obviously dark and there were bioluminescent organisms all throughout the water, and we got to swim with them. This was probably the coolest experience I have ever experienced. Basically, they're kind of motion activated, so you'd like pull your arms like through the water and they would just all glow, like all these just like little organisms. It was like swimming in outer space. I was just entranced. I would just like paddle through, just like watching my hands. You'd kick your feet and they'd just like come alive, and I wish that I could describe it well enough because it was the coolest. Just cool doesn't even like describe it. It was just, I don't even know, like maybe look it up. And on top of it, we looked up and I didn't even know that there were that many stars. I mean, I knew, but like seeing that many stars at one time, I have never, it was like space above, space below. I love the stars. I was just like, just bubbling with happiness. It was the most perfect night I've ever experienced, and wow. I'm never gonna get over it. After the best night of my life, we piled back onto the bus and headed to our hotel, which was called Moppy's Cabins. They were actually pretty nice.
Land turtle.
How cute.
There was a restaurant right next door, so we grabbed dinner there, and I actually was watching the Saprissa versus La Liga game, which ended up as a 0-0 tied game, which was very disappointing, but c'est la vie. I think that's French. I'm putting it in here anyways. I hung out with a couple of friends after, watching SpongeBob in Spanish. They butchered the voice of SpongeBob. I do not recommend it. Then we pretty much headed to bed because we had to wake up really early for breakfast the next morning. And then we headed back to Curu to do the land part. We didn't even need a guide because our professor literally knows everything about all the species and the evolution of the forest. He's been going there for years, so he's like explaining everything to us. And so we just walked through.
He's at the square level.
It's a tropical dry forest, which is obviously a biome I've never experienced before, so it was really cool. It was an old mango plantation, parts of it, so there were a ton of mango trees. We got to see some monkeys.
Oh yeah.
Iguanas, all sorts of trees that I don't know any of the names of. My professor is so funny. He would like hear something and be like, oh, I think that that's this bird.
Sounds like a jade.
And I'd be like, what? And then he would just be like, oh yeah, it's this, and it's adapted to do this, and you should know this and this and this about it. Like, he is crazy smart. So then, yeah, took the little ferry back and got home and just mostly ate and took a nap because I was exhausted. If you ever are in Costa Rica, I would absolutely recommend trying to check out the Curu Reserve. Not only because it's an amazing experience, but because you are supporting something that is so pure and so pro-environment and is so good for this planet. I'm gonna link some more information about it below so that you can check it out whenever you get the chance. It is a worthy cause. So thanks for living up this weekend with me. I encourage you all to do something cool for the planet this week. Whether it's big or small, every little bit helps. Alright, I love you all. Pura vida!